Mr. Rainwater.
Hey there, Joe.
Fantastic interview with Joe Bevel last week.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I enjoyed just chatting with him, and I also put a lot of time into just like coming up with those questions I asked him, because
it shows.
I don't know. It was fun to kind of, especially somebody I know, kind of going into their work and like just kind of pulling everything apart was really, really fun for me.
And it was very interesting to me. I mean, I had listened to the new album because I had, up until I called you or I texted you that day, I had fully anticipated on being in the actual episode and asking him questions. Yeah. I wanted to be up on it. But I was so happy that you brought up his other albums too, because that reminded me that he has other work out there. And I was like, oh, and then I went and checked out Super Juicy and Super Juicy 2. And I was very happy to do that. It was,
I was, the other thing that was really surprising to me and I was happy to hear is that he got everything uploaded to YouTube. Cause for a while I was like, he really needs to get it on YouTube and get it on like Spotify. And he's figuring it out. He's on the way. So
it's YouTube is a good way. It's not like a lot of things aren't made for YouTube, but YouTube is a good way to get attention to them. You know what I mean? To further distribute things, which is why we have the podcast on there. It's not because, people want to look at our ugly mugs. It's because it's a better way for people to discover us. So why not?
And you never really know, like, what is the venue it's going to take off on, too. Like, that's the thing that I'm starting to learn. Like, I'm very used to YouTube as being the main distribution channel because I just use YouTube so much. But there are a ton of people use Spotify nowadays. And so I'm kind of learning, different people or different work has different, places where it takes off.
Which kind of leads us into the segue for tonight, the particular topic that we're going into, which is being an artist without a support system. And distribution is, part of solving that problem, I would say.
Like one of the main, in a lot of ways, one of the main things to figure out. And it's interesting because I was having a conversation with somebody who just contacted me sort of through one of my Discord channels. They read Trailer Park Warlock, and they're an artist, and they do, they're figuring out how to get their work out there and whatnot. And they were going through asking a lot of questions in regards to like how to deal with burn stuff. And I think, we've talked about this subject a million different times, and I think it's just interesting because I almost wonder if it's getting harder nowadays than it was. Like for me, for comics, I wonder if it's getting harder nowadays than when I was starting off putting stuff on the internet, just because now there is so much stuff out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like
noise.
And social media is kind of a different animal from when it was early on. Because I mean, I don't know. I remember Twitter and Facebook in the early days being very much like things went viral easily. Did not take much.
Yeah.
Like there was just a new viral thing every other minute. And nowadays it almost feels like the companies kind of determine what they want to go viral and what they don't want to go viral. Yeah, there is that aspect of it for sure. Money definitely plays a huge role in it nowadays.
Promote it. Do you want to promote this tweet? Do you want to promote this post? Posts that get promoted get 20% more interaction. And, it's very clear. You could post something on like a Facebook page that's like a really cool piece of art, and it'll get like 20 likes or something, and be like, wow. And then you could post a following post like maybe an hour later. They could be like, hey, I'm giving out $100, and this is real. This is really Zhao saying I'm giving out $100. Just tell me which fucking movie poster that I posted was your favorite. Zero interaction.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like it could be legitimate. You could post a video of yourself going, I will give you $100. I will Venmo it to you right the fuck now. Somebody comment below, and it won't show up because it's just like Facebook's like, okay, you've had your post for the day, for the week, for the next 6 years. Like, pay us or nobody's going to see the shit that you do. So it gets to that point where, you know, we talk about the algorithm all the time. Nobody knows what the fucking algorithm is. I don't know how to make an algorithm. No one knows how to find the algorithm. People just post shit at like 2:23 on a Wednesday and they say, wow, Wednesday posts seem to do really good. Who the fuck knows if that's actually the reason why?
Especially because it's a dynamic system too. And like I was saying earlier, like Facebook and Twitter 5 years ago is totally different from now.
Yeah.
To the point where you have people speculating whether or not even Twitter is even full of real people actually interacting, or if it's not in fact like majority bots. So that's all preamble. This is all preamble sort of to I think a more broader topic in regards to how to keep going, right? When the support systems there may not necessarily be there. Because so often, go ahead, John.
Well, before we get into that, I wanted to ask you the question. What do you define as a support system?
There are different kinds of support system, right? There's a monetary support system, which is like one where your main financial issues are kind of sorted out, so you don't have to worry about your physical resources in terms of getting your work completed, and also just living day to day. But then there's also your emotional support system, right? Like there's the people who are in your life who might be encouraging to you, you know, to keep doing what you're doing, or just like the fact that they're around is supportive. The fact that they are by your side, even though you might be doing something that by all like, you know, factual circumstances is a bad idea, probably, you know, like from a monetary perspective might be a terrible idea, but they support you anyway. So, you know, when talking about like art without a support system, I personally often think about it from the perspective of art without that like support system of necessarily of like friends and family, right? And it's not like, and for me personally, like I'm not talking about this as like, oh, my parents aren't supportive or whatever, or like my family isn't supportive, but it's just sort of like there is a point that I have come to as an artist where I'm starting to get used to the idea that like my close friends generally, there are some friends who do check in or ask or whatever, or like keep up. But I've gotten used to the idea that like my friends are probably not paying attention to what I'm doing. My family's not paying attention to what I'm doing as an artist. That's not the thing that's on their minds, right? And I think artists being what we are, right? We want attention. We want acknowledgement. Sometimes that could be the hardest thing for a lot of artists when it's like, you know, oh, you've known me for so long. Why aren't you keeping track of all the things that I'm doing? And it's like, well, you know, they have lives outside of you. That's my TLDR on this subject, right? Getting more in depth to it, I think more to the point is at a certain point in any artist's like quote unquote career or whatever, you have to be able to disconnect to it in a certain way, not entirely, but in a certain way from the people who are near to you and dear to you, because they aren't going to know how to like properly emotionally support you, because you'd have to like be inside your head basically to understand what it is that you need. So I'm curious for you, Jao, what sort of response do you might have to say to any of that?
Well, I'm thinking the problem, I'm going to turn this into a Scream parallel, the fucking movie Scream, which, by the way, I don't want to get off topic. I am lit, so forgive me for being a little tangent and going off on a tangent here. Scream 2 is coming to movie theaters in October, and my ass is going to that. So fuck yeah, it's the 25th anniversary of Scream 2, and I don't think I've known any fucking sequel movie other than maybe The Godfather or Empire Strikes Back that has gotten a theatrical re-release for its 25th anniversary, let alone a horror sequel.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty dope. Anyway, I'm turning this into a Scream parallel at the moment. When they announced that Scream 5 was coming out, I was still active on Twitter at that point. There were accounts that were determined to get behind the scenes photos, like leaks, all this kind of shit. And I thought to myself, why the fuck would you do that for a mystery movie? Why? You know what I mean? Why would you want to know anything?
Yeah.
Like, that's the point of going to a mystery movie is to engage in the mystery, right? Things still leaked. Things still got out there, and I didn't understand that, whatever. And when the movie finally came around, I noticed some of the accounts, like, there's the hardcore fans that are like, oh, I'm going 16 times on the first day. And, those motherfuckers are like me. But most of the people who didn't, like, run the accounts, but were still, like, following it, were like, I don't know, I'll get around to it when it's on DVD or blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking to myself, there's too much information available. If that shit got out there, like, and it's the same thing with movie trailers, right? People aren't necessarily always in a rush to do it. And I'm thinking now, I'm going to round this back to our conversation. We as artists are too accessible. Yeah. So you talked about the idea that we want intrigue, we want interest, we want attention, we want to be acknowledged, we want people to kind of plunder around. In doing that, I think the word that they use about this in the dating world is thirsty. Yeah. We are too available. We have an Instagram where we share our photos, and a Twitter where we share our thoughts, and a Facebook where we share the movie script we're working on or this or that. And we promote it out there, and people don't have to ask us anymore what we're doing. We, in essence, are quelling our own mystery, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, there was definitely, and it's interesting that you bring that up because it's like, for a long period of time in history, that was sort of the appeal of an artist, is like, they're the mysterious creative person. You don't really know where their creative powers come from. They're oftentimes, like you're saying, inaccessible. And it's totally flips now where... And this is the thing that I can't quite figure out is, like, I wonder if it is that people want that accessibility, though. You know what I mean? Like, people might not be as into artists who are mysterious or have mystique. Like, they want that accessibility. They want to have that celebrity within reach, or even the illusion of celebrity within reach, if that makes sense.
A little. A bit, but those people are still quiet until suddenly you start making noise. Then it's oh, I knew him. Oh, I know Joe. I know Rainwater. New York Times best-selling artist. He's got 100,000 somewhat subscribers for his webtoon. Like, I know him. He's a friend of mine. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But until that fucking number hits that 6 digits,
I see what you're saying.
They're fucking silent. They don't like the posts. They don't reshare anything. They don't mention you or like those people are fucking vapid, empty, hollow motherfuckers. And I could do without them.
You're hitting on the reality of it though, because I think so much of celebrity within the arts nowadays is about a number and not so much about what work is being put out. Like I'm not
so
saying
sad.
It is super sad because it's in a lot of ways it's totally destroyed in my mind what made art interesting to me. Like for me when I was younger, to me it was there are artists who are at all sorts of different levels of popularity or whatever, but they create their lives, they make their money however they make it, and it's not about the fame or it's not about necessarily the numbers, it's about what they make, and that's what draws me to them. But so much of social media, like culture or whatever, it's all about that fucking subscriber number. It's all about like how many views that person gets. That's what defines whether or not they are important or not. And like, clearly I don't believe that to be the case from like a observational standpoint, because nobody, like, I don't follow people based on how many numbers, how big their numbers are. I follow people because, oh, you make really interesting work, or like, oh, you have really interesting things to say. And to me, the number is like ancillary to that. You know what I mean? Like, there are people I follow who like say really interesting things and may only have like 3,000 followers, and there might be other people who say interesting things and have like 300,000 followers. It's all, to me, kind of arbitrary. But I guess on a wider cultural lens, that doesn't seem to be the case. And I think that's sort of what you were just pointing out, and I think is kind of true to a certain extent, which is that what's really kind of uncomfortable is people don't want to support people who are just schmucks, right? Like, nobody wants to support you when you're the indie garage band that shows up at the, at the VFW. Yep. But right. As soon as you do the act at like, some big...
Sorry, somebody was trying to call me.
But as soon as you do some act on, on YouTube that hits like 100,000 views or whatever, that suddenly breaks through, and suddenly like, oh, now you're the artist, right?
Right. And that's the terrible validation of the way, and I think to some extent that it's artists responsible for that validation bar. Like sure. Like I don't know if we said it or they said it, but either way, the bar got set there, and we were like, all right. And we went to it, because I won't lie. Like, there's been times when I looked at my follower count and was like, I need to get this up. I need to do stuff. I need to interact more. And if I follow more people, they'll follow me back, and then I can get it up and da-da-da. Like, that kind of nonsense. And the truth of the matter is this. I've noticed this in terms of, since I've come around on it, like how you said, you see somebody's art and you just, you follow them because you're interested in the art.
Yeah.
I've done that on Instagram, where I look at someone, like an art will pop up and I'm like, oh, that's a cool movie poster. Check it out. Oh, they got a lot of cool art. Follow. Boom. I don't look at their follower count. I don't look at my follower count ever on Instagram. I just look at the art. And now I'm starting to wonder if whether just putting out the art is all that you need to do. You know what I mean? Like, and just that's the bar where it's like, I wish you could hide the number of followers that you had. You know what I mean? Because then what would happen then?
Yeah, I mean, I would be fascinated to know that. And I actually would be fascinated to see somebody actually have the gall to make a social media system that removed all that.
Yeah.
Because I think
that's what breeds competition and like status. Like, and that's bullshit.
Yeah.
What really that is the money people, the marketing. And that marketing has fucking ruined art. That's really the truth of the matter, is because marketing looks and says, this is what people are spending money on. This is what they're reacting to. This is what we need to make. This is what we need to fund. It's the same situation when it comes to social media, where, if I walked into a manager's office right now and I had like 6 scripts with tons of accolades and, really good, compelling characters, all that kind of nonsense, the first thing they might do is say, well, how many followers do you have on Twitter? How many followers do you have on Instagram? You know what I mean? Like that, the fucking accolades mean nothing. And it turns out that like they want to know, how big is the distribution channel that you've made for yourself off of your work without us? How much easier have you made my job? And that's fucking ruining art in every shape and form. So it's more like, to me, I want to revolt. I want to rebel. I want to fight back. I want to start the insurrection that says, no, I'm just going to make the art. And segueing into a different portion of this discussion about a support system, we touched on this a little bit back, and I'm tipsy, so forgive me if I'm a little crass here. We had talked about where I'd asked you the question if you believed that a lot of sequential artists wanted to be filmmakers but just didn't have like resources or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can tell you this right now, and this is about the support system. I don't have a support system as a filmmaker because, and this is me being an asshole, and I'm freely, openly admitting it, I have yet to meet people who are willing to rise to my standard, where I am of the mind that perfection is unattainable, right?
Right.
But I don't say, oh, well, perfection is unattainable. Well, let's just do it, whatever. I still say, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to meet people of a similar mindset, especially ones that are willing to work for free, that are in the same like bracket of filmmaking, of success, of whatever you want to call it. And so without that, I can't rise to my standard without being a dick. Because, you know what I mean? Like, like people hate me because I am unrelentingly mean about it. And like I've tried carrot and stick. I've tried to be very nice, easygoing, dare I say fake, you know, smiley, encouraging, inspirational. Couldn't get what I wanted. Tried being a dick. Couldn't get what I wanted. Tried leading by example. Still didn't get what I wanted. Yeah. Each one of those things had the wrong effect out of it. The causality was just out the window. If I was a dick, people would rebel against me and go a different way. If I was inspiring, they would take that to their ego and say, I'm good and I don't need to try harder. If I tried to lead by example, they would either jump on my coattails and call it their success, or, you know, just let me do all the work. And every scenario, it never seems to work out in my favor. And I'm at a complete fucking loss. So if you have an opinion on how I can approach getting a new networking support system, I'm open to hearing it, because at this point, I don't know what to do anymore. Sadly, I'm completely at a loss.
Sadly, I'm hearing what you're saying. And for me, the only thing that I can think of that actually gets response from people is money. Like, you literally have to. Like, so for example, I don't know, maybe I've talked about this before, but so Frank Zappa, I learned this, there's a really good documentary about this actually, just called Zappa. He had a band, right? But his relationship between himself and the rest of the band was basically the relationship between like a conductor and an orchestra. So he kept it extremely professional and kept it at such a place where it's like, I'm the employer, you're the employees. You're going to show up for work. You're going to show up for work by my rules. So he had very, to the surprise of a lot of people, he had a very strict rule about nobody does drugs while performing for him.
That's interesting from Frank's fucking Zappa.
Well, it's interesting because Zappa was actually like, he wasn't completely a teetotaler. Like, he smoked and sometimes he drank, but like, he didn't know like no legal drugs at the time. He didn't smoke pot, which really surprised me. Like, he didn't do psychedelics. He was like extremely straight laced in that sense.
I had no idea.
He's actually like very infamously known with the saying, I'm gonna butcher it, but he said something to the effect of like, drugs are basically an excuse to be an asshole, which is kind of true to a certain extent. But like,
alcohol is the excuse to be an asshole. I mean, drugs are the excuse to be stupid.
So, but he had very strict kind of like employer policies for his band, in the way that he treated it the whole time. It was like, you're going to come work for me. I'll pay you for your work, and you're going to show up for practice. Here's the hours that you're going to work, et cetera, et cetera. So like, he was not everybody's friend in the band, nor did he care to be. He wanted to keep that strict sort of structure, because for him, he looked at the whole thing as that sort of conductor-composer relationship. The way in which he was able to employ that obviously was through using money initially, but over time it also became about prestige. Once you know, like once
he reached that level, absolutely, I can understand that.
Once you're Zappa, it's like people want to come play for you because you're Zappa.
Right.
So like there are two venues then, not just money, right? Prestige is the other venue. That prestige is theoretically easier to attain than money, but you have to be able to do the kind of things that obtain prestige, which is usually either you do something so inordinately like out there or whatever, or attention grabbing, that everybody kind of knows what your name is, which is harder to do nowadays in a weird way, right? Like everybody can have their 15 minutes of fame viral moment.
Yeah.
But your name's not going to stick on anybody's, plate. Like the only way somebody's name sticks out nowadays is if you get canceled, basically, as far as I can figure out. You know, like you have to be willing to just say something or do something that's so like abhorrent that suddenly you're the thing that people talk about for months. But in a way where your name is kind of cursed for a while, and then after that initial period of being cursed, like you can kind of do whatever you want, apparently.
But here's the thing. The people that do the canceling are the Karens on the internet. Right? They don't have the sideswept haircut type thing where it's I want to see your manager. But it is those type of people who are so uptight on Twitter that they're on Twitter 24/7, ready to pop off on whatever is happening and turn it into a movement or a revolution or some nonsense bullshit self-validating thing. You know what I mean? Like, to the most part, like when I've seen that, oh, so-and-so was canceled, blah, 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 I'm like, no, I'm probably still going to watch that show.
Yeah.
I'm still, you know what I mean? Like nothing about it is going to change for me. And I like that some celebrities now are like, okay, I'm canceled anyway. And they just keep going on. You know what I mean? It's like, I decide when I'm canceled. You don't decide when I'm canceled. And that kind of mentality. So in terms of like getting a name structure and stuff, I don't want to say I have a name. I don't. I have a persona, right? The whole Anjao thing, whatever. All those screenplay awards, I made my own feature film, right? Like, I have some accreditation here underneath me. A couple weeks ago, and I'm not editing it this time. A couple weeks ago, we did the 48-hour film fest, and I did it with this crew I'd been working with for a while. And they had a couple of problems where in the past, other people had written scripts and stuff, and I just kind of came on as second camera. This particular thing, I was supposed to be brought on as DP, director of photography, cinematographer, all the same thing. The guy who's normally the DP found out and went to the EP, and there was some miscommunication between them. And I was taken off of DP, which I was okay with because I was still kind of waiting to see what this guy's skills was like. They knew I had my screenwriting awards. They put me, and I told them this flat out. I'm like, because the last time they did it, they made a film without writing a script at all, which blew my fucking mind. I told them, I'm like, once we get it, I'm going to write a script one way or the other. If you decide to use it, great. If you decide not to use it, also great. But I'm writing a script so that we're not standing around with just our dick in our hands for the whole 48 hours. I wrote a script. I wrote a pretty damn good script. And it took me till 3 a.m. in the morning. Next day, we show up for filming. DP didn't read the script the entire day. Had no idea what we were shooting about. Just shooting random things. Unmotivated lighting. Unmotivated camera. Like, just completely not doing anything.
Yeah.
I've made a feature film. I know how to direct actors. I went to fucking film school and paid $120,000 to learn how to fucking direct people.
Sure.
They chose a guy who had never directed a narrative in his entire life, had no experience doing any kind of narrative work. All of his stuff was doing documentary sound. That's who they chose to direct.
Yeah.
They change things about my script. Okay, fine. Everybody's going to have their 2 cents, whatever. The director didn't understand what the script was about. It was pretty fucking easy to realize, too, if you read it. And they changed things, so now it no longer works. Doesn't make sense when it's being shot. In addition to not making sense from directing standpoint, it didn't make sense from a cinematography standpoint. The editor's hands are tied at this point. There's nothing they can do to fucking save this. Lo and behold, whole things were not shot or cut out of the script entirely to make it completely wrong. The point I'm getting to here, this script, like there was an award ceremony the other night. 0 awards. And this is like participation awards that they give out. There's the one big one, which is the best of New Haven or whatever. And then there's like a whole bunch of like bullshit awards that don't really mean much. 0 awards. 0 wins. Got nominated in a couple of things, but 0 awards. The point that I'm getting to here about the Prestige, I have all of this experience, knowledge, ability, skill, whatever you want to fucking call it, talent. I was chosen to do one thing that I know that I've gotten awards for, and it was still perverted by the apathy and laziness and ego of other people to the point where I don't think I got nominated for best writer or anything like that, because I don't think they submit the actual screenplay. I think they just judge it off of the final script.
Yeah.
And that hamstrings me. What the fuck am I gonna, you know what I mean? Like, what, I can write the best fucking script in the world, but if it gets tainted by the director of photography and the EP and the director and the editor, what's the fucking point? Like, I can take that script right now and give me the same exact actors who, some of them gave okay performances, some of them gave horrible performances. Yeah. I could get better performances out of them. I could make the script easily make sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I could do it in less than 48 hours. If you subtracted the time it took us to write the script and come up with a story, and the day and the time we started on set and the time we ended on set, and you gave me that time, and then you let me edit it, I could turn out a script that probably would have been a contender for best of New Haven, or a short, I should say. But the point is, the Prestige got me nowhere. It didn't, you know what I mean? It got me till 3 a.m. to write a script that got bastardized by several other departments, and now it's like, well, what the fuck? I can't hang my hat on that. I'm ashamed when my name rolls across the screen when people look at that. No, legitimately, it says written by Andrew Casragro. Like, they spelled my name wrong too, which pissed me off. But that's neither here nor there. The point of the matter is now that's damaging my prestige.
Yeah.
Could you imagine what would have happened if Frank Zappa was like trying to make his way up and somebody fucked up, like he used his last little bit of money or something to do something and they slapped his name on it? It was terrible, and everybody's like, well, that's fucking bad. Zappa's terrible. Well, maybe it wasn't Zappa's fault.
Right.
So I don't know if the prestige thing really can help you. And I think it is what you came down to about money. That's really what it's going to have to come down to. I'm going to have to find people that are worth the money, save up money, pay them money to do a job. And I liked what you said about Zappa not there looking at it like he's making friends, and quite the contrary in some instances, because that was my biggest mistake making Digits, was thinking me and everyone were friends and we were going to make all kinds of movies together and we were in it together, and then it turned out not so much.
Well, it's ironic too, because we were kind of starting this off with talking about art without a support system, and I think sort of one of the conclusions I'm kind of coming to right now is I think artists actually do better when they exclude their support system from the arts.
Yes. I think this all the time. I don't think I've said it yet, but I absolutely am in agreement with what you just said.
Because I think oftentimes when you try to include friends and family, what happens is friends and family come into the art with this expectation that the previously established relationship should give them additional status to how you think or feel about how things should be made or whatever, when in reality, when you're just trying to make your thing, it's just like, I'm trying to make my thing. So like, you either do what I ask you or get the fuck out. Like
Yep.
that's, you know, like to a certain extent, like it kind of comes down to that at some point. And unfortunately, I think, or fortunately, I don't know, you could look at it either way. Like I think rubber really meets the road for most artists where they have to go, okay, I love these people, I want them to stay in my life, but like they can't. It's honestly better if they don't have anything to do with this thing that's really important to me.
Which is why I got to a point where I was no longer. At one point, I was very adamant about, if I post this my shit on Facebook, you better fucking share it, like it, comment on it. It's like the whole 9 yards. People didn't do it.
No, they're not gonna do it. Like that's the thing. I mean, like I will say, like my dad is probably one of the few people that I know closely who will share stuff. But I know, like even when he shares stuff, I'm like, I know he probably did not read that.
Doing it, he's just doing it because you're his son and he loves you, and that's the end of it, right?
And I appreciate that, but I know, like, because I know him, I know it's like he doesn't know entirely what he's reposting. He's just kind of being supportive.
Yeah, I mean, for a father-son relationship, that's a great thing. For an artist development angle, that's less of a, you know what I mean? It means nothing in that aspect of it.
Because what you want to develop over time is you want to have the ideal situation for everybody is to be in a situation where you have a bunch of people who share your stuff, who love your stuff, and you don't actually even know each other at all. Y'all don't know each other. They just love your stuff, and they want to see you succeed.
Right.
That requires so much time. That requires so much of your name just being available in their lives to the point where they have developed a relationship with your work, you know. But in order to develop any relationship, it takes a lot of time. It requires, you know, you as an artist to be extremely patient on that front. Yeah,
it takes a lot of failing until you don't.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, and when I think we're all in a rush to get to that part where we're shared and reshared and commented a bajillion times and this and that, that we don't take the blessing that is the silence, if that makes sense. Where, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I mean, this is maybe my perfectionist isms talking, where it's like, I like to look at everything and go, well, how could I have done that better? And to my own detriment, I will do that until the cows come home. You know what I mean? Like, and that sometimes will hold up me releasing art, is the fact that I'm too chasing that perfection. But I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, that's one of the beauties of having people over your head that are in charge of your art. And this is talking in a positive to that, is that at some point with art being taken away from the artist and given away to people, like released, you know what I mean? Like there's a famous saying that films are never finished. That's why they're called released. And that's why we say released. And that makes sense to me, because if I don't have somebody over my head that's going to say, this is your deadline, I'm taking it away from you at this point. It's one thing to say, you know, the inspirational thing to motivate to not be a procrastinator, but it's also another thing to say, you will work on this until you die, unless I take it away from you. Like, we are all that kind of creature when it comes to art. And it's important to have that kind of person in your life to, I don't know how to word this, save you from yourself in a way. Sure. If that makes sense. Like for like Trailer Park Warlock, you have editors. You have a deadline, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but if it was me, like, how long have I been working on Haunted? 2016, 2017 is, I think, when I first wrote it. It's now 2022, almost 2023. And the most I have for it is a couple of laurels on a poster, a test scene that we shot, and a bajillion ideas. Like, that's the extent of what that I've been able to accomplish, because, you know, I can't find the right animatronic spider for a scene or something like that it's not going to work. And, I got to figure out how to get this, and I got to get the right actor for this role. And at some point, somebody's going to have to stage an intervention and say, you know what I mean? Like, Joe, either sell the fucking script if you can, or throw it in the trash can and walk away, because you gotta start working on something. And that, I think, is an important part of a support system.
I tried that many episodes ago.
What's that?
I tried to talk you into doing some other stuff just to like have something to do, to make stuff, you know?
I vaguely remember. Is this where you were talking about like a YouTube channel stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I don't know if this was on the air or not, what my response, I remember what my response was to you, which was, I don't want to, like, I would be good at doing a cooking show on YouTube. I would be good at doing a movie review show on YouTube. I would be good at doing this and that and doing another haunted home theater and this and that. But it's not going to make me happy. And that was my response. And there's nothing you can say to come back to that, because, you know, a person knows what makes them happy. And now that you admit to that, that kind of went over my head. I just thought you were you were serving yourself as a fan. Like, oh, I like when Zhao does that. I want to see him do more of that. I thought you were asking on that behalf, as opposed to
it's both.
As trying to be a friend in another respect.
Yeah,
it was
no,
like, you know what I mean?
I mean, there's definitely an intervention aspect of it, but it's also like, I just want to see you fucking make stuff, because, like, you know, it's the same. It was part of the reason why I was really enjoying having that conversation with Joe Bevel, because it's like, it's just cool to see people that you appreciate making stuff and putting stuff out there. Makes me feel a little less alone.
Way to boost yourself up there, Mr. 100,000. I want to point out how much you pointed out the Joe's process. We were talking about before about the mystique of an artist. And Joe does not talk about he's working on an album, whatever. It was just like, boom, here's an album. And he dropped it. And that was, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I know like fucking Beyonce does surprise album and all that kind of shit these days. But for Joe Bevel to do it as someone not in the league of Beyonce's audience, right? I'm not saying talent-wise he's not in our league, because that's, you know, up to each person. But in terms of like an audience reach, he's not there. But for him to just quietly work on something and then say, here it is, and put it out there, it's like, and he does. And I don't know if he necessarily made a big fanfare about it either. It wasn't like 10 days till the drop of sunshine. Like,
it was just released on his Instagram story. Like, I could have easily missed it, not known that it was happening.
Right. And that's kind of a, you know, so I would critique that differently. I would love the fact that it was done mysteriously in the dark without any of us knowing he was developing it. And on the same time, I would love if he would have blasted us all with it when it came out. But that's, you know, different for each artist to determine how they want to market themselves and all that stuff. I'm sorry, the Pumpkinhead beer is starting to come back on me. But no, like, yeah, that to me made me more interested about listening to his album, even though I had already listened to it by the time I heard the conversation. But listening to the other albums, you know what I mean? It occurred to me this weird like way that I was like, oh, his other albums are more like surprise drops because I forgot they were there. So I can go listen to those now. Like, it was weird to come at it from that perspective, but you bringing up that subject with him is what kind of kickstarted that in me. See, now me bitching and complaining for the last half hour that I have no filmmaking support system, I have a jonesing to do some kind of artwork, whether it's a painting, whether it's just a drawing, whether it's teaching myself how to compose music, whether it's dropping a freestyle rap music, like going back to the old school, like high school and Zhao type shit, and just be like, here's a rap album from Zhao. Like, nobody would see that shit coming. I'm tempted to do that, but then there's that argument where I tell myself, I'm like, you should be working on Haunted. Like, this is a massive endeavor that you're trying to undertake. You're trying to deliver a quality film. Every waking second that is not dedicated to taking care of your son or keeping the lights on over your head needs to be dedicated towards making Haunted. And that's what stops me from making other art, is because I feel like I'm going so slow as it is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Working when I work on it, that if I worked on other things, it was never going to happen.
Okay, but just like a little bit of real talk right now. Like, if you put it aside for like 5 years, would it disappear? I'm just speaking from a theoretical perspective.
No. I would see there would be that whole mindset of I failed, and there would be, and this is real talk, there would be concern that people would look at me as a failure, and B, a lot of talk, and C, I don't know what C is. I went down a blind alley there, but at least those first two things. A lot of like someone who just talks, doesn't do anything, and a failure. And that does impact me, because that is the prestige, right? Because Zhao made a movie. Zhao won all those awards for this script. Why isn't he making it? Like,
but what if it was an exchange where it was like, okay, I'm not going to work on Haunted right now, but instead I'm going to be working on these things that you will obviously see releases on every week, every month or something like that, where it's just like you're on such a schedule that at a certain point people won't care because they're like, oh, cool, Zhao came out with a new thing, you know? Like, that's my only argument that I think I'm trying to make right now, because I think the way that I look at sort of your dilemma, you could be potentially in the process of perpetually having to kick it back just because life is life, right?
Yeah.
And you end up in a Mr. Holland's Opus type situation where you never really get to do the thing that you wanted to do because life throws you all these different things, and
I'll miss out on doing other things that I wanted to do that I could have done.
And you might not hit the big high of making the dream film, but you might hit other highs that might actually make the dream film stuff happen faster. Because if you want to have, it's like if you want to have prestige, you have to be able to show things that showcase, you need to do things that showcase off your talent. And the thing that you're expecting to be the thing that showcases your talent is this huge project that's going to take an incredible amount of resources that in your current situation makes it more difficult to do, as opposed to, let's say you had a YouTube channel that had 20,000 followers, because you had found something that people just like really wanted to keep coming back to or whatever. And because here's the other thing is, knowing you personally, I know that if you made whatever, like a cooking show, or maybe every couple of weeks you released like a 5-minute story of some kind, like a short story or whatever.
Yeah.
I know that you're the kind of person, like, once you sink your claws into those kinds of haunches, you're going to keep that pace going and you're going to make it happen. Yeah, exactly. So, like, I look at that, and right now, the way that our current media atmosphere exists, it really likes to reward people who consistently just release small things instead of people who every once in a while release big things. I hate that that's the case. I would rather it be the opposite. But, like, I am coming into this place in my own life where I'm having to accept, like, what things are. Like, I can't, if I fight it, I'm just going to make myself miserable, right? And I'm having to realize this too, of like as I'm ending Trailer Park Warlock and I'm thinking about the next story I want to do, I'm realizing if I really, to improve my chances for this next story to have any hope in hell, like, of continuing, of being accepted as a pitch or whatever, I have to adapt myself to the audience needs that exist right now. And that doesn't mean that I need to, like, make it, exactly what I think people are expecting, in the sense that, oh, it needs to be like a serial romance or whatever. Like, I just know that I need to make it easier to consume in bite-sized chunks, which ironically actually makes it easier for me to write and makes the process for me easier to deal with, as opposed to doing a big ambitious thing that takes all of my energy and time and exhausts me. And, like, yeah, I can feel proud about myself when it's done and I've made it and whatever. But if it's not if it's not getting the effect or the impact that I want that helps me continue my career, to a certain extent, I'm actually like shooting myself in the foot. So like I have to compromise with the times. And I don't like that. But at the same time, it's like I'm starting to tell myself, like, bitch, you gotta survive. Like, you gotta figure out how you're gonna make that work. And I'm not gonna make that work by just, grinding my foot into the ground and saying not fair, because that's just gonna end up just me shooting myself in the foot more. So that's why I bring that up, is because I'm just like, a lot of this is just me kind of talking about the conversation I'm having with myself right now. Because, like I said, I have been really resistant to how the times are changing. And I'm noticing as time has gone on that hasn't served me as well as if I had adapted better to how times were changing.
Mm.
And so it's not like an easy thing for any artist to kind of come across, right? It's not an easy, because everybody's going to make their own, like, you've got to make your own decisions for what's going to make you happy. I've got to make my own decisions for what's going to make me happy. But that's the whole reason why I keep kind of bringing up this thought that occurs to me, is like, what could serve you better is doing shorter, more bite-sized stories. Because I know you love to fucking write stories, and you can write really good. You can write good short stories. You can write good long stories. You can write good stories.
That's nice of you to say.
And I know that you would do well in either situation. And I think that I suspect you would have a lot of fucking fun once you actually get over the hump of having to put Haunted aside and say, okay, not right now, but soon, right? And then do that hard work, like the hard work of like, okay, but what am I going to do to like cultivate my audience? Because like that's the thing that you need right now, I think, is you need to cultivate that audience. And then once you have that audience cultivate, you can do a fucking Kickstarter, and then you can have the money to be like, hey, you know what? And this is dream big stuff, but it's like, oh, maybe I could actually get some fucking kind of big name talent on this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Believe it or not, it wouldn't be on the actor side. It would be on the technical side.
Sure.
I would rather give nobody's non-celebrity type people a great entry into a great film. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I know, because actors are some of the few people that are in readily supply that are willing to work for free.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And they show up and they know what they're doing.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Too, now?
Yeah.
The other reason why I also say this is I saw the response that you got for your Haunted Halloween stuff. In
the
like,
haunted home theater you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the home theater stuff. And I'm saying this from the perspective of somebody who has I've seen different ways that like initial releases of stuff sort of happen, right? And yeah, I'm basing this on numerical statistics, but like the kind of response you got for just releasing one thing out there, to me was really impressive. And I was like, well, Jal did this like once a month even. He could grow that channel so fast. And I think that what is uncomfortable, right, is that you will have to grind. Through YouTube, one way or another, you're going to have to grind. Like, that's just like a matter of the fact. But the way in which you would have to grind, you would see consistent growth. And not everything does that.
Let me pitch you. We only have like 5 minutes left because I don't want to make this into a 2-hour episode. This is what's been going on in my head. This is what I would do if I wasn't working on Haunted train that runs through my head. You had pitched, like you said, a cooking show, right?
Yeah.
And I've said to myself, and I've said to you, I'd be good at doing a cooking show. I love to cook. I know how to work the camera. I could be charismatic on camera. You know what I mean? Like I can edit, I can do it all. I can all that stuff, but I don't know if it would make me happy. The other part of me is like, well, I think it'd also be fun to do more haunted home theaters for October.
Yeah, I can tell you have a lot of fun doing those too.
They're a lot of work, but to be honest, a lot of the work was because A, I was procrastinating a lot, and B, startup efforts. You know what I mean? Like when you first do something in the front, like even this fucking podcast, it took me like 6 hours to edit our first episode. Now I knock it out in less than like half an hour. And it's because I built a template and I just drag and drop things into it. I add all the effects. I've discovered all the things. I export it. I know when to upload. I know, you know what I mean? Like I figured all that shit out. So I've got it down very easily to not make it a burden, if that's a way to describe it. You know what I mean? Like the way I take our Skype video and I separate it and I sync the things, whatever, all automated. Again, like less than a half an hour for me to just do all that. So haunted home theater, I granted, I'm a little rusty. I think the last time I did one was New Year's. I have ideas that I want to do for October. I also have cooking ideas that I would want to do for October. A lot of my shit seems to be Halloween centric, but the idea that started rolling around in my head was something called either Just Jow or Jow Tries. And then it would be different every single video. And then it occurred to me, this was the train of thought that it went, that instead of just making a channel that was all haunted home theater or Jow cooks or whatever like that, that I'd just do different videos every single time. And it wasn't a consistent series on the channel. It was just whatever I felt like doing. Like maybe I did do a cooking thing, but I don't do a cooking thing every week. I do a cooking thing when I want to do a cooking thing. Yeah, right. I do a haunted home theater when I want to do a haunted home theater. I do, this is how I write, process video or something like that, where it's more focused on me. And it's like and that's not from an egotistical standpoint. It's more like I am the connecting through line through different things.
That makes sense to me.
People could come and do it, and I could stay on my smorgasbord of variety of things that I want to do. Like I think I pitched this to you at one point. I was wanting to do like an animated October cartoon thing. About like trick-or-treaters and stuff. And like I never got around to doing that. The closest thing that I have at the moment that's not haunted is I wrote an outline for Cemetery Sweethearts. That's it. I started writing the script a couple times and then I just didn't like how it was writing out, and I fixed the outline and this and that. But another part of me was like, well, why don't I just fucking make videos about the outline process and the script writing process of this particular script that I'm working on and things like that. And then another part of me was jumping out and going, well, do you know who the comic book artist guy, Eric D. July is? Have you heard anything about this guy?
No, I haven't.
He's a libertarian. He's a black guy. And he's constantly making videos on YouTube. And they're not like how we do an hour-long podcast, right? He does it in like a podcast format, but it's like a 10-minute video whenever some kind of news thing pops up. So like he talks about the She-Hulk, the CGI animation. Then he comes back and he talks about how She-Hulk is tanking. And then he talks about how like woke politics or whatever are ruining comic book industry and da-da-da-da-da. And he does it, this and that. He just dropped his own comic book brand called the Rippaverse, and he made $3.5 million on his Kickstarter launch.
Holy shit.
And he only has like maybe, I want to say it's either 20,000 or 500,000. I forget. But he doesn't have 1 million followers on that YouTube channel. But he's got a support system, and all he does is do that. But then you also have people on the other side that are like, I'm assuming that are like super woke people. And I'm not saying that disparagingly. I'm just saying that like that's an identifier that they willfully use. And they do, that kind of take on it. And they're also very successful. Part of me was sitting there going the other day, I feel so alone in this political landscape, sitting in the middle where I'm like, I understand the trials and tribulations that a transgender person is going through. But on the other side, there's 600 fucking pronouns that I'm supposed to learn now, and that's getting ridiculous. And all I ever see on the YouTube thing is column A and column Z.
Right. Well,
there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing for that middle sector. And part of me is like, well, why don't I just fucking make one myself and call it Down the Middle with Jow? And where I literally could talk out where things make sense, things don't make sense, things I understand, things I don't understand, things I agree with, things I don't agree with, and just make something for people that felt like myself in the middle of, I don't want to get into like politics, like law and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, what, you know, who should be able to get married and abortion rights and this and that. But in terms of how it's talked about through art and commercial art, mainstream art, independent art, like that kind of thing, I felt like I would excel in discussing or talking about, even if it's just me ranting at a camera for 10 minutes about it, but doing it for the people in the middle. And then the part of me that was really like torn about it was like, well, I could do the cooking show, or I could do haunted home theater, or I could do that, or I could do the cartoon of the thing. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm so up in the air, and maybe it feels like to me that the easiest choice is to say, don't pick from any of those. Just keep your head down and keep working on haunted. Like, it's a cop out, maybe. Like, I do question myself as to whether or not I'm afraid to try something else because it would succeed, and then maybe it would take up my whole time, and then I wouldn't get to do haunt. You know what I mean? Like, those are the kinds of things in my head. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
But that's the thing, is everything you're talking about. You know, this is the wild thing, is that people who have big dream projects, the way that they're accomplishing a lot of those big dream projects are by doing what you were just talking about, where they're cultivating an audience through YouTube or whatever, doing the things that bring in people, because maybe there are people who want to hear, you know, perspectives from this or that side, right? And then once they get to know that person, they're like, oh, I want to support this, whatever project this person's doing. You know what I mean? I wish I would have better understood this when I was younger, because I kept, and I'm still to a certain extent approaching it this way, but I kept approaching it from the sense of, I'm going to put good work, put it out there, and that will get audience. And to a certain extent it has, and I'm appreciative of that and glad of that. But there is a certain kind of support that I think that people can get from that other angle, where it's like people come to support you almost no matter what you do, which is different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like if you make the difference is, in my mind, is like if I make stuff in the future and it sucks, I lose that support. But if I make something in the future and it sucks, but like I have other stuff that people come into on a regular basis because they just want to see my views on things or whatever, they're going to be like, oh yeah, you know, that thing you made sucked, but I still love you because you do all this other stuff. You know what I mean? I think from the perspective of having support as a creative person, that is probably like the more quote unquote decentralized model, if you want to call it that, creates a more stable base by which you can build from, versus like the old model that you and me are both used to, which is like you put something really good out there, it takes off, and then that's where, you know, you build the rest of your life. In a lot of ways, we just don't necessarily live in that world in the same way anymore, because people want to have a personality to sort of to build their affection around. Are you saying we're old and out of touch? Oh yeah, yes. I know I have grays in my hair these days, but damn, Rainwater. It's become exponentially more apparent to me too as time is going on, and I've had days where I'm like, maybe it's too late. Like maybe I missed that boat already, and like, you know, everything from here is just degradation, you know. But I think if you and me both have any sort of chance, I think it does exist in that realm of cultivating audience through voicing our lives in a more general sense, and being artistic in a more general sense, I think is the best way of putting it. It's why I have started developing a video series on my YouTube channel where I'm still drawing and I'm still working on stories, but while I'm drawing, working on stories, I'm using it almost as a personal journal where I'm just talking about sort of like daily life. And my focus is to talk about like being an artist and what that's like, and also talk about anxiety because I have dealt with that off and on and do so on sort of a daily basis. So like these are all things that people come to and respond to, and like it's not huge. It's not like a huge sort of response, but like I've had conversations with people that talk about, you know, their own stuff that they go through as an artist, and it's really nice to have that relation where you go, oh, okay, I'm glad I'm not alone in this. You know what I mean? So like that alone for me has been very much validating in this process. And well, like for me, I don't know where it'll go. It might not go anywhere, but like I like the process, and it helps me feel more seen as an artist, and more just like I feel like I'm having growth basically, whereas previously I wasn't sure. So I guess that's another way of putting it, is like I think for a lot of artists, like the thing that kind of kills us is that we feel like we're not getting any growth. So we have to find ways in order to get outside response so that we can validate whether or not we're growing. And that's kind of, that's why I brought all that up to you, because I was like, I guess because I have a lot of confidence in you, and I feel like you would really succeed at it. I could be totally wrong. You could totally fucking bomb, but I feel like you would succeed at it really well through YouTube as a venue.
But here's the thing that's interesting, and it's weird for me to be able to endorse someone endorsing me. You saying that is more than I get from my wife. Or from Buddy, right? Like, you know, like I've known Buddy since the day he was born. Yeah. I don't really get those kinds of, I don't even want to call it, it feels like I'm devaluing it by calling it a suggestion. But in essence, that's what you're doing, is you're suggesting to an artist something you would like to see them do. And I don't get that from other people. And here's the point. Let me just make this point real quick.
Go ahead.
That is a support system right there.
Sure.
That you know what I mean? As opposed to someone telling me, you can do it. I know you'll make content. It'll be great. That means nothing to me. That really does, like, it falls off my shoulders. That's a compliment. That's not a support. Yeah. What you're saying right now is an endorsement, is encouragement, is tangible direction. Something, you know what I mean? Like you are expressing interest. You are offering ideas that I could poo-poo at any time. So in its essence, you're putting yourself out there in that essence, where I could shoot you down and make you feel like shit if I was just like, no, that's fucking dumb. Like,
here's the thing, Giles. I've done this with so many fucking people, and so many fucking people have been like, whatever, you know, because. But that's,
I'm not taking it that way right now. I can tell you that right now. You are getting through to me.
That's everybody's prerogative, because like I've done that with things that people have told me too, because it's like, you know, you have in your mind your own idea of like how you think things should go and how they'll be and whatever. And like, here's the thing, and I've talked about this a million different times, but like the whole reason Trailer Park Warlock even became a thing is because Joe Bevel contacted me on Instagram and was like, hey, you should check this out. Like, this might really work for Trailer Park Warlock. And like, I took him up on that. Because I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. Like, it wouldn't take me a whole lot of work to adapt this to Webtoons. Really just copy-paste a bunch of stuff, and it worked. It really paid off for me. So, like, I look at that, and I'm like, that is like how I think artists kind of throw each other a bone, is be like, hey, you know, I know you on a personal level, like, what are your strengths and what you're good at? I feel like you would do really well at this thing. I'd like to see you try it out if you're up to it. And that's the only way that I can think of that, like, we're able to keep that flame alive as artists, is to, like, Because the thing is shit is changing all the time, and shit is going to continue to change all the time. So like, we have to be willing to adapt to keep ourselves alive, but also to keep our dreams alive too, to a certain extent. Like, we have to be willing to adapt, because that's all that's the only way. That's the only way forward, as far as I can figure. And I'm interested in, like, for myself, I'm interested in trying to keep moving forward as best as I can. I'm interested in seeing the people whose work I admire and who I want to see work and create, like, keep moving forward. So that's where I come from in terms of that stuff.
All right. Well, we've hit our 110 mark, which is our usual cutoff point. So I think that was actually the perfect point to end on right there. When we come back next week, I will provide an update on what I have, what I have done in the time since we last recorded. And I will let you weigh in on it. I don't know if that'll be the topic or not for the next podcast, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
I will tell you this much right now. I will take a week off from Haunted at the very least, and let's see what I get done. So as of tomorrow, I will not work on Haunted for 7 days. And we will see what I end up with. I will work on whatever speaks to me, and I will try and have something done. Let's put it like that. Whoa. Maybe not done, but at least something tangible. Let's put it like that. If it's a work in progress, it's a work in progress, but something tangible and not just talk or ideas. That's really the thing that's most important to me, is that it's not just, oh, I have this idea, because there's millions and fucking billions of people who have ideas. Sure. That never put them into action, and that's the difference between success and failure. So anyway, thanks for listening to our session, everyone. If you are actually out there, I'm going to invite you to tweet at me. We haven't done this in a while, and I'm not active on Twitter at the moment. At the Anjow, TheAnjow. One more time, at TheAnjow. Tweet me and let me know that you're listening, because we have a couple of listeners that show up on both the YouTube and the actual podcast things or whatever. And I'm curious to know if you're bots. I'm very curious to know if you're real or not. So just tweet me at the Anjow. I am real. And that's all you have to say. You don't have to say encouragement. You don't have to weigh in on anything that we talked about tonight. Just say I am real and tweet me, or Rainwater. You can tweet at Rainwater. Is it Matt J. Rainwater or Matthew J. Rainwater?
It's Matt J. Rainwater. Yeah.
Matt J. Rainwater. Both of us are on Twitter. Just tweet us. I am real. Please. I really want to know. If not, if we don't have any hits by next week, it's fucking bots, and maybe we should hang up this podcast, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, Rainwater, if you have anything else to add, feel free. Otherwise, we are closing up for the night.
No, that's all I got.
Cool. Good night, everybody.
Good night.